Good morning, my fellow believers. Bill DuBois here. We're getting ready to start one of Sam's Bible studies this morning through the Sam Hall Bible Ministry. Today we're going to be starting in Daniel chapter 1. It's a very interesting chapter. It's going to pretty much introduce Daniel to us throughout the entire book. I read it last night and I couldn't put it down. It was a page turner. So without further ado, we're going to say, hey, you're going to love Daniel. I mean, it's a very, very, very good. A lot of miracles happen in that particular book, and so everybody, make sure you have your Bibles with you. Follow along. You be on, man.
You know, I was watching. You were watching. Oh, okay. Yeah, we're ready to go. I was gonna say I was watching the best of the TV bloopers, those news bloopers and that.
They are pretty
and
funny.
this don't have a light on, so I could be sitting here going. He's waiting, like that, and oh, okay, and then the camera rolls across or whatever.
Yeah. Some of those bloopers are pretty funny.
They're funny. Live TV, it's hard to be live TV.
Yeah.
Alrighty. What I'm looking for. Oh, I do want to share with you one thing. I don't know if you noticed or not, but I ordered. And good morning, and we're going to start Daniel here shortly. But I ordered a box of multicolored gel pens.
Oh, really?
So. Verse 1, green, verse 2, blue, verse 3, orange, verse 4, yellow, so I love that way I can
keep them separated.
Yeah, so all black or all blue or whatever else.
Right.
I've been doing that, and then my purple, I used to have a black, a blue, and a purple, and my purple ran out. It was my actual second one, which is about the color of that little bag there. And it just helps my eyes read it. I don't wear glasses usually. I just use this to focus on but being in different colors, it helps. So
well, it kind of like in Daniel when you say purple is if Daniel could interpret the dream, then he would wear a robe of purple.
Royal, yeah.
Yeah, a robe of purple and a gold chain around his neck. And Daniel says, "I don't want that stuff."
Mm-hmm.
But he gets them in anyway. But I don't want that stuff.
Well, that's Daniel the rapper, and we're going to talk about we're going to talk about just the good old boy Daniel here. Daniel the one of the good prophets here. So yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what? I was as you was doing your introduction there, I sometimes fail to read what these Bible interpreters, the commentaries in my own Bible here. I have a study Bible, prophetic study Bible, and it says the deportation referred to in this passage of 1 and 2. In the third year, Daniel chapter 1, in the third year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem, and besieged it. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, with part of the vessels of the house of God, which he carried into the land of Shinar. We've heard that word before. Mm-hmm. To the house of his God, a little false god. And he brought the vessels into the treasure house of his God. Does yours say there Eliakim? Does it say
in the commentaries or
in the actual reading in the third year of the reign of Jehoiakim? Does it say Eliakim? That was his name given him. Jehoiakim.
It doesn't say. It just says Jehoiakim of Judea permitted him to take some of the sacred.
Well, these two boys here, they were brothers. And their daddy was a good king, but they turned out, they were not good. And we're also going to go back to Isaiah. We read in our study in Isaiah about, remember when the good old king there, Isaiah said, "What all did you show him in your treasure house?" "Oh, I showed him
everything."
"Oh, really?" Well, here's the result of that. Here's the result of
how stupid can you be?
Ignorant leaders, wishy-washy leaders making bad decisions. What can happen either immediately or let's say a couple of 100 years down the road.
Well, we do have an empty suit in the White House. Piece of crap. I'm sorry, I hate that guy.
Well, he's despicable. Yeah, him and Cackles
I hate
also.
that guy. There's no words that can describe.
JoJo and Cackles both are just they're despicable. But hey, you know what? Romans 1. I refer to this a lot in our days. When the evil and iniquity overwhelms a country, they are given over to a reprobate mind. the strong delusion comes, and then the leaders are also evil. They're given evil leaders, so we're experiencing that right now. But hold on, joy comes in the morning. Hold on, my child.
Amen, amen. Or
So-
as, all right.
All right, yes, okay. So, reading 1 and 2 there, God, I love Daniel, and you've heard me say this before, talking about the whole book of Daniel, these 12 chapters. God is in charge. No matter where we are, Bill, no matter where we are geographically, God is in charge. So to finish what I'd started there, the deportation referred to this in these passages 1 and 2 there, was the first in a series of deportations of Jewish exiles to Babylon, located some 600 miles across the desert in what is now southwestern Iraq.
Ooh.
So, yeah, so further on there, Shinar, Babylonian Empire, Iraq, Iran, that's that area that we're talking about. Remember the Tower of Babel? They left off building it. Well, here's a little bit more to the story here.
Yeah.
So sometimes your comeuppance comes and gets you, and this is what's happening. Notice they mentioned the word vessels, and they're going to mention it again. Vessels, what was in the storehouse, what was meant to be for the use of Holy Father God, the God of Israel, out of the temple there in Jerusalem, out of the capital in Jerusalem, for His people. Well, let's just go back and read it. Where is it in Isaiah and Hezekiah? Remember King Hezekiah?
Yeah.
He told him, let's go.
He
Remember
goes
our
and
study?
says,
Isaiah 39, is that it?
is that what it was? I don't remember. There's only 66 chapters.
There's only 6. Let's start off kind of in the middle there.
Yeah, we could figure it out.
Let's read Hezekiah 39.
Oh, you're in Hezekiah now?
I'm in Isaiah. I'm reading about Hezekiah
Oh, okay.
out of Isaiah. Yeah.
Okay.
Hezekiah is not one of the books, not in my Bible, but he's mentioned a lot.
39.
Yeah. So he has some visitors here. Hezekiah in Isaiah 39. At that time, Morodak Baladan. That just sounds evil right there.
Yeah.
That just says he's the world dominance there. The son of Baladan, king of Babylon, sent letters and a present to Hezekiah. Okay. This is not from the Lord. This is from Hezekiah. The Lord's in charge, of course. So, for he had heard that he had been sick and was recovered. So this is his best wishes, etc., etc. And I'm coming to butter you up a little bit. Hezekiah was glad of them and showed them the house of his precious things, the silver and the gold and the spices, precious ornaments and all of his house of armor, and that was found in the treasure. There was nothing in his house nor in all his dominion that Hezekiah showed them not. Then, right off the bat there in 39, he showed them everything. And then Isaiah comes up to him and says, O king, just what all did you show this entourage from Babylon? I showed them everything. And Isaiah goes, oh, well, alrighty, good job. No, that's not what he said. Isaiah the prophet came to him and Hezekiah said, in 3, what said these men? And from whence came they? Hezekiah said, they are come from a far country and to me, even from Babylon. And Isaiah says, oops. Well, they've come, like we just read, about 600 miles across the desert over here to Israel. 4 says, then he said, they have seen, what have they seen in thy house? And Hezekiah answered, all that is in mine house have they seen. There is nothing among my treasures that I have not shown them. And Isaiah says, well, you twisted, foolish old king.
Amen.
Etc., etc. That's Sammy's version.
Yes, Samuel.
Then said Isaiah to Hezekiah. Now Isaiah is the prophet here. Isaiah is the prophet of God, the one that speaks what God intends for the people to hear. Hear the word of the Lord of hosts. Not my words, the word of the Lord of hosts. Behold, the days come that all that is in thine house, and that which thy fathers have laid up in store until this day, shall be carried to Babylon. Nothing shall be left, saith the Lord. All thy sons that shall issue from thee, which thou shalt beget, the people that are going to be born here, shall they take away, and they shall be eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon. Now, we went over that, and I kind of explained to you what eunuch means. They go from bases to tenors. Then said Hezekiah to Isaiah, good. Good is the word of the Lord which thou hast spoken. He said, moreover, for there shall be peace and truth in my days. Remember we brought about in that study, that was kind of an odd response.
Yeah, because he was only thinking of
He's
himself.
self-centered there.
Yeah.
He had been sick. He got some extra days allotted to him. And Isaiah's going, well, remember, this is the hand of the Lord that's working this miracle in you. Now he's been sick. The foreigners hear about it. And they send this entourage. And he doesn't have to show them anything. He could just show them the outside lawn and go, yeah, don't have a pretty palace here. And here's my king. Here's my throne. Here's my whatever else. But he shows them everything. Well, they're taking notes over here. He's got some pretty nice what? Vessels that's used in the house of God. Well, what happens here? A few years later, folks, they go back. And what happens? Now, this first time, they didn't take everything, and they didn't take everybody. This was about 598. 3 or 4 years later, they come back, and this is where Daniel 3 and on takes off. Now they've come back. And old Nebuchadnezzar says, I want it all. So it's brought back to the house of Babylon. So remember, we're going to take the physical and the spiritual part of this. Where's Daniel?
You wanted the vessels or the challenges so they themselves could drink out of it.
Absolutely. And also mock or hold up and go, where's the God of Israel? These aren't serving the God of Israel. Yeah. Where's the God of Israel now? We're offering these to Baal and Balaam and everything else. We're offering these to our gods.
Yeah.
So here they are. You got to think in their physical minds, their emotional minds, and their dark, cultish-like minds. So 3, back in Daniel now, that's where the story, the ... before Daniel 1:1, if you want to read Isaiah 39 like we just did, there's where the ... comes in. Isn't it wonderful how the Bible all works
Yeah.
together?
And then when you get done reading Isaiah 39, you say, how dumb was this guy? Yeah.
Selfish and self-centered, and first of all, he had, remember, to give him a little bit of credit, go King Hezekiah back there in Isaiah before 39. He threw out everything. You know, the leaders were at his door. Assyria was at his door, going, "We're going to come get you." So he throws open. He goes into his room. He puts it all on the table. He throws it all, puts the cards on the table. Lord, what do I need to do? This is before you. You're showing me what to do here. I want to know what to do, and he does it.
Right.
But then what happens later on in his life? He goes, "Well, at least during my lifetime, everything's going to be good, and there's going to be peace." Well, you know what? There's always a lull before the storm.
Amen.
And here's the storm coming.
Yep.
Oh, let's just stop right there. That's good enough. That's a good teacher. No, let's see. 3 says, and the king, back in Daniel 1:3, and the king spake unto Ashpenaz.
I'm going to be able to pronounce that one.
Ashpenaz, now keep this name in mind. Ashpenaz is the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel and of the king's seed and of the princes. Now remember, we just read in Isaiah that your people are going to be taken. The seed after you is going to be taken. What's going to happen to them? They're going to become eunuchs. They're not going to be making more of you, because why? They're going to be serving another kingdom and another god.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Ashpenaz is the anyway. He's told what to do. So, and for his children, in whom there was no blemish, but well favored and skillful in all wisdom and cunning and knowledge and understanding and science, and such as had abilities and in them to stand in the king's palace, and whom they might teach and learning and the tongue of the Chaldeans. This is an interesting tactic here. Now, this is a tactic. This is a war-like tactic. He didn't come in and just demolish everybody. This is Nebuchadnezzar. Now, remember, folks, go with me. We're going to, we might expand a little bit more in Daniel, should the Lord lead us, and I think we will, because I flipped it a while ago and it landed back on Daniel, so we might just continue. Nebuchadnezzar, as we're going to get into it, just a little preface, in the next few chapters, we're going to read that there's a dream that goes on. He has a dream. Well, he's the head. He's the goal, which means he's the top.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about the world. We're talking about all of known, the little globe spinning out here called Earth. He's the boss.
Of the known world.
He's the boss. Anything else that may be known, he knows it too.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they have some very wise people, but they're called musicians, magicians, and sorcerers, and enchanters, and everything else. So instead of demolishing his enemies, he goes in with a tactic that's actually kind of interesting. He says, wait a minute, those people, they're not dumb. So I want the best, I want the cream of the crop. I want all that they have over there, and I'm going to start taking them out. I'm going to start deporting them. They're in exile. They're going to be my prisoners. They're exiles now over in my country to me. I'm going to rule over them. But notice how he does this, Bill. Notice this, class. Notice the tactic that this evil leader of the world, and remember, this is the physical, so who's the evil leader of the world right now? Spiritually. Satan. Okay? Keep it all in mind. Read your 4 and 5, and let's bring something else out about this.
Select only strong, healthy, and good-looking young men, he said. Make sure they are well versed in every branch of learning, are gifted with knowledge and good judgment, and are suited to serve in the royal palace. Train these young men in the language and literature of Babylon. 5. The king assigned them a daily ration of food and wine from his own kitchens. They were to be trained for 3 years, and then they would enter the royal service.
Can we use the term 36 months of brainwashing?
I would think so.
Let's say 36-month period of brainwashing. Now notice this. There's no whip involved here. There's no the word slavery. There's no bondage. There's no put them in the dungeon until they bow to me. What is he doing? Giving them the best of everything he's got. Right out of his palace, he says, I want you to take the best ones over there, and what I'm going to do to these people is make them become little me. Make them become like us. What is he going to do? Dress them like the Chaldeans here, the Babylonians. Cause them to learn our language. Get them to be on our diet. Give them the best of what I have. Teach them our literature. Teach them our ways. And have them in the ones that are skillful in all sciences and writings and readings and astronomy and everything else. Bring them here. Teach them under my thumb the best of everything, that they may make me better. This is a tactic. Now that sounds kind of interesting, doesn't it? That sounds like, well, he's being nice to them. Well, let's see. Let's see, because the Bible tells us that later on, there in the Gospels, there in the epistles, that Satan himself can transform into an angel of light, or be transformed himself, make us think, that's good stuff. That's all right. That sounds good. Looks good. Everything else. That's for my benefit. Well, let's see.
I'll be danged.
Were you thinking of it that way?
No.
Alrighty.
No.
No, I didn't think of it that way.
Alrighty. Well, let's see here.
Sam keeps on moving.
Isn't that fascinating how the Lord works now?
Yeah.
Now notice there in 4, the end of 4, it says, and might teach the learning and the tongue of what? Babylon, the Chaldeans. Where and what land and out of whose people was Abram taken from? The land of of the Chaldeans.
Mm-hmm.
He was taken out of downtown Idolsville, idol worship. Okay.
I like the way you put that.
This is where Abraham, we turn to Abraham, father of many nations, was taken. Is it starting to click in you? What's going on here?
It is now.
Brainwashing. A very friendly, no bamboo up the fingernails, no stretching machines, no whips, no chains. Oh, here's your palace room. Here's your all the literature that we have. Now remember, folks, Daniel 1 starts off with a certain timeline, but before Daniel 1:1, Babylon already was Babylon.
Right.
Okay, we got a couple of 100 years here between Hezekiah, Isaiah 39, and Daniel 1:1, and Babylon is a world empire. They've taken over Assyria now. They've flipped the Assyrians.
They control everything.
Taken control of the world and made it even a grander on scale of population and wealth and knowledge. They've upscaled them by many times.
Mm.
Okay? So in the tongue of the Chaldeans. Now, is it good to, let me just throw this out. Is it okay to learn a different language?
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a good thing to learn a different language, to be able to communicate. We see that in Acts 1 and 2, that the believers there were given the ability to speak in tongues. They told all these passerbys in downtown Jerusalem at that time the gospel. They were teaching, preaching the gospel in their tongues. These men of Galilee were speaking whatever else language, and there was several of them going on at that time. Yes. And I know a little bit of French, I know a little bit of Spanish, I know a little bit of German. It's good to be able to have a little conversation with somebody if you go somewhere, and be able to, and plus it's also pleasing to them that, hey, this foreigner actually is trying to my language.
Learn my language, yeah.
But here's the deal. I'm not going to stop being an American citizen, and I sure ain't going to go not be Texan anymore. I just happen to know a little bit of your language. Well, here's the thing about this. They're being brainwashed into becoming Chaldeans.
Right.
They're going to become Babylonians. They're in his kingdom, and they're going to serve him under his guise, under his table of, these are now my wise men. These are now I've taken them from foreign language. So he's changing them from who they are to who he wants them to be.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it's kind of interesting because later on he sends his army out to kill them all because they couldn't interpret the dreams. Did I spoil it?
No, but we'll get to that too and see what happens there.
You know what I'm saying? He
Yeah.
spends all this time and effort to train them, and then he just throws them away.
So notice here in the introduction here, and if you just want to skim across Daniel 1, it's a good introduction. It introduces you to who Daniel is, what has happened, his three buddies there. I also want to stress, we all know them. His three friends is who? We're fixing to read it. Let's read it.
Don't ask me.
In 6, it says, now among these were the children of Judah, Daniel. We know Daniel. He's writing this one here. And I believe at this time too, not someone else wrote about it a couple of hundred years later. I believe it's Daniel writing right now. And then he has his three friends here, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Let's keep them. We all know and have heard the words Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, right?
Right, that's the names of the Babylonians.
That's who they were given name. The Babylonians gave them these names. Well, let's just start off going, wait a minute. Daniel, let's see who he's changed to. From Daniel,
Yeah.
okay, he goes from Daniel, look here, as God is my judge, he's faithful, God is my judge, to Belteshazzar, which means worshiper of Baal. So right off the bat, he goes, wait a minute, you're not going to call me Daniel here, you're going to call me Belteshazzar. What's that mean? Oh, you're now a worshiper of Baal. Oh, if you would just please call me Daniel. Watch this young man. Now we're talking about late teens.
Yeah.
These three guys are in their late teens. Let's say 17, 18, somewhere
Yeah,
around there.
yeah.
They're taken from who they are, folks. They're taken away from their land, as it was told in Isaiah. He said, hey, because of your folly, because of your lack of standing up and being the proper leader, God help us to have proper, righteous, godly, strong leaders in our land. Let's just pray that, okay?
Okay.
These young men are taken away, and they're chosen because apparently they looked good, they were physically fit, and they have excelled in their schooling in their land. And so all these guys, now this didn't have, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5 didn't happen overnight. These were sought out and picked out and chosen by their enemies and going, you over there, you. This is what has happened, okay?
So you said Daniel was called Belshazzar and
Belshazzar.
oh, come on. And then what does it
Let's
mean?
just read it and you'll get
What
it.
does it mean?
Okay? So 7 says, unto whom the prince of the eunuchs gave names. Now remember, the prince of the eunuch was back over in, the master of the eunuchs was Ashpenaz. So in the middle of 7 it says, for he gave unto Daniel the name of Belteshazzar, Belteshazzar. Is that in your book?
Yeah.
Okay, Belteshazzar.
In what?
Worshipper of Baal, one who worships Baal, Baal.
B-A-L?
Baal.
Okay.
Baal.
Okay.
Okay. Now then, he says. Now, before you even ask, just let me keep reading here, okay?
Okay.
Because I know what you're going to ask, and I've got a perfect answer for you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, continue reading 7 there.
No. 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 I'll read this part. That
And to Hananiah, Shadrach, and to Mishael of Meshach, and to Azariah, Abednego. Okay, so now then they're looking. Okay, I'm going to come up to you and I'm going to say, William A. Dubois, you are not. I'm not going to call you Bill anymore. I'm going to call you Abednego. Why? Because I'm taking you from Greenville, Texas. You can no longer worship your God. You can no longer go to Brashear Baptist Church. You can no longer study the Word of God, that Word of God that you call the Bible there, from the God of heaven, whoever that is that we can't see. And I want to take you to a foreign land. Here's our God. His name is Baal. There's also the thunder God. There's also that God. There's also this God and everything else. Anyway, I want to call you, and you make up a name. Now, what is that doing to you psychologically?
Well, to me, it's trying to completely change your, I don't want to say DNA, but it's really trying
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah, change your whole attitude, because if you don't do what we want you to do, we don't know what they're going to do to you. So, but you got to say to yourself, well, did they just say they did that and then still stayed with their God? Apparently those guys did.
Well, let's read the next one.
Yeah.
I love the starting of verse 8. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with a portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine, the strong drink, which he drank. Therefore he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. He actually spoke up. Now remember, we get that from 4 and 5 there, where it says that they're going to teach all these. And Daniel at that point was not balking. He didn't say, well, it may be interesting and good to learn other things. It always is, as long as it's across the spiritual line of, wait a minute, we're getting to occultism. I don't really need that in my life. I think, and I do, on my own, I learn as much as I can about these things so I know how to fight it better with the Word of God. And if someone sits down with me one-on-one, what about this cult? What about this religion? What about this? Is it okay to drink human blood? Well, I can give them biblical verses about that, because people do that, Bill. Okay? 8 says, and I want to ask you this question: what have you purposed in your heart? Your heart, who you are in Christ Jesus. Do you have a purpose in your heart? Do you know, according to the Word of God, what God has laid out for you? Are you on that path? And no matter what comes up against you, deportation, taken several hundred miles away, you don't know anybody there except these guys that are closest to you. You see some people way over there in another part of that land going, what? But I think those are, that's some of my people over there, but they're taken away right quick too. Now you've got these 4 young men. These aren't old, experienced men. These are teenage boys. Daniel, and we're going to call them again, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. From now on, they're going to be called Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, because that's what they've been changed to. But we're going to read it again, and later on in Daniel 1 here, 19. Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, because they're going to be able to stand before the king. Why? Because they've gone through this period. But Daniel has purposed in his heart. This is the key right there. Purpose in your heart. That kind of goes back to that psalm that we read a while ago, Psalm 77:10.
Yep.
You remember that? Wait, whatever's going on in my life right now, I'm going to remember just how awesome my God is.
Right.
He's been taken away. He has left. He's uprooted from his family, everything else.
Yeah.
We don't know a whole lot about his family. Ezekiel's going to be taken later on in the next one, in the next deportation.
But when you think about Isaiah 39 in those first 9 verses, It's almost like David is questioning his faith.
Psalm 77.
Yeah,
Oh, well, now remember that's Asaph right now
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
But David was over it. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Questioning, you have to, and let's dissect that a little bit. Question. I can question my ability and end up with the answer. I can't do it. I can't make it.
Right.
I can't do this.
Right.
But you can also, like that psalmist was writing, Asaph was writing several times there in those first 9 verses. Has God forgotten me? Has God's mercy? Is He not showing mercy and grace to me anymore? Where is God? And you can get down that low.
Yeah.
You can get way woozy out in your head. Have you been out there before? I'm
Yep.
sure some of you have
I have.
because, well, just admit it. Yes, I've gotten down on my knees. I've pounded the table before. I've taken this Bible and thrown it across the room going, that ain't no help to me. Where is God? If God is, I wouldn't be in this situation. Blah, blah, blah. On you fill in the blank. Your own life circumstances. But please go from 9, get out of 9 and go into 10. Wait a minute. My God is an awesome. I now remember God is an awesome God. All the waters obey Him. The Red Sea parted because He said to.
Well, there's one thing that I would never do is throw my Bible on the ground. I take the Bible as serious as I take the American flag.
Absolutely. Well, we have
Because
the
if
American flag
I'm
because
going
of the
to
Bible.
read the Word of God, you can bet your sweet life I'm going to
Yeah.
respect the Word of God.
Absolutely.
And that's what's in this book. So, I mean, I know what you were saying. You get angry, but I
Well, throwing it actually physically or leaving it on the table closed is defiling it also.
my Bible is right at the kitchen table with me every day.
And open, yeah. Yep. Sure enough, that's the way it should be. And you hide it in your heart that you sin not against Him.
Right.
Now then it says, notice that request there. Now he actually spoke up and said to this man, and also as we read these verses, when you read one, you go, oh, what's going to happen? And then you read the next one, and that answers the question to that previous verse. Well, God already had that worked out. Let's see what happens here. Daniel has made a request. Notice what has to happen. Then it happens. Then another thing happens. Notice what has to happen first, all through this chapter 1.
Right.
Daniel makes this request. He purposed in his heart that he would not defile him. So we're talking about a teenage boy here, 17-year-old, 18-year-old boy. That he would not defile the kings. Now he goes back to the Leviticus. Leviticus 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, all through there. God, Adonai, Yahweh of Israel, had set up a special a diet for His people, which is actually a good thing. It's actually a good thing to follow a certain diet. He did that for medical purposes. He did that for a physical purpose. He did that for a stay away from this, because if you do, you might get sick. Some of these animals out here that I've made for a reason. They have their purpose out there, but I really don't want you consuming them. Paul in the Corinthians church, he writes to the Corinthians 1:8, I believe is one of them. Me sustaining from, you mentioned lobsters or crabs or shrimp, whatever else you want to go, sustaining from that doesn't make me any closer to God, or eating as much pork as I possibly can put on my plate doesn't keep me from being with God. He writes it going, we have a new covenant now, and that's the blood of Jesus Christ.
Right.
If you don't want to eat pork, if you don't want to eat a pelican, if you don't want to eat skunk meat, if you don't want to dine with the Beverly Hillbillies, and if somebody ain't shooting me a possum, we're not going to eat breakfast today.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's okay. But don't think of that in your spirit of, well, I'm so holy now because I sustain from eating that. That's not what that means.
That's not what it's about.
If you want to follow a diet, that's a good thing. I followed a diet for 50 months to detox my body when I was sick. And that helped me quite a bit. I followed a certain diet, which was very meager and very non-flamboyant in any way, for 50 months. And the Lord showed me what to do, and He allowed me to live through my sickness. So Daniel has purposed in his heart here that he would not defile. Now, here's another thing too. That's the physical thing. There's a spiritual element to that too, Bill, because we notice that this eunuch and then his subordinate that's going to come in is going to fix it. All these platter people that fix it for the king, and the wise men and their astrologers and their magicians and all that, they have started thinking in their minds and in their evil spirits, it's because of what we eat that makes us so wise. So here, notice what it said there in 5. Let's read it again. And the king appointed them a daily provision, a portion of what he had, of the king's meat and of the wine, which he drank, so nourishing them for 3 years, that at the end therefore they might stand before the king. In other words, he's going, you know what? I'm giving you off what I would be eating. I'm giving you a portion of that. This is your ration. So if you're thinking when you're eating today, hey, this is what the king would be eating too. That also is like, man, he's been pretty nice to us. Another part of the brainwashing.
I didn't realize your analysis of that in regards to the food.
They're becoming loyal. The ones that follow after that, they're
Right.
becoming
Yeah.
loyal to
But what I
him.
mean is that the food would dictate,
Mhm.
what did you just say? It would dictate what their beliefs were
Mhm.
based on the food they were eating?
Right. They had the belief system of this is why this is why we've taken over the world, is because of what we eat.
I'll be dang.
Isn't that neat?
Well,
So-
I never thought of it that way.
5, I wrote for my notes there, meat or foods, rations. Here, of course, is the diet of the pagans, which included unclean animals, and Daniel, being a Jew, was under the Mosaic law, which prohibited certain meats, fowls, and fish. Remember, if you want to read Leviticus, it
Right,
prohibits
right.
certain animals, certain mammals, certain fowls, certain aquatic animals out there that God said, of these thou shalt eat. Of these thou shalt not eat. Well, he had a reason for that. He wasn't like, I'm holding back because I don't want you to get that good, fat, juicy meat product. No, he's going, I want you to hold back. First of all, you're obeying me. Number one, you're just obeying me. I told you not to eat it, so don't eat it. Gee, have we heard that story before?
Yes.
Yeah. Back in the first few pages of the Word of God.
Amen.
Let's just do what the Lord says. Secondly, he's also going, I want you to be physically fit and well in your GI tract, but also in your head and in your body and in your bones and in your cells that I created, which I know down in you. So don't eat this, but do eat that. And if we remember, there was a whole lot of vegetation going on that he provided for them.
Right. Yeah, that's what it was requested by.
Mhm.
But
So-
the thing is, though, that he's more interested in your physical body than your soul.
Say that again?
He was more interested, not Daniel, but the king was more interested in your physical body rather than your soul.
Oh yeah, the Nebuchadnezzar, absolutely,
Right.
yeah. He does want them to be loyal to him, mind, soul, body, spirit, and everything else. But yes, right now he is working on their psychological, mental, and physical. Because why? He wants all the knowledge he can get from them. See, some people, and this is a cult. This is a cult religion.
Yeah.
To know as much as I possibly can about out there. To know why that star is over there, and this is over there, and that one's over there. And why what's that the big one out there at night that we can see, and the hot, they want to know all about that.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's part of religion. That's a cult.
Mm-hmm.
To study and to observe and to embrace all that, and then the name of them and go, well, that one's our God, and that we worship that one there. We worship the S-U-N. Yes, you're absolutely right. He was more interested in getting their loyalty physical and mental. He's also going, hey, these strong drinks, you start giving somebody some strong drink, what does that do? I'm going to start depending on the source because I'm kind of dependent on that drink.
Yep.
Well, where does it come from? The king? Well, I better be loyal to the king. Why? Well, you got him hooked, huh?
Got a hook on one.
Yeah. Back in the 60s and 70s, out in Los Angeles especially, they had pushers, they called them. If you watch Dragnet, they had pushers. Well, what did they do? They provided heroin and PCP and all those other barbiturates and amphetamine, stuff like that. Well, you become dependent on it. Man, I got to have a fix.
Well,
You become dependent on it, see?
what they say is what it comes that the very first time you take a drug like cocaine or heroin,
You want to keep following that high.
yeah, well, the thing is that you achieve this great high, and now you are trying to achieve
Yeah.
that high, but you will never reach
Yeah,
that high again.
It zooms way up there because your body's not used to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that first time I drank a cup of my mama's coffee when I was about 18, 19 years old. I was thinking, I've never had any of that before. Boy,
Yeah, but we're not talking about an addicted drug to the point that you're going to kill and steal to get just to achieve that feeling. The feeling is in your heart from God, not
That's right.
That
So
drug stuff.
you're right. So that's why I like to bring out the physical and spiritual aspect of this. Now then, in 9 it says, now God, here's the answer to 8. Now God had brought Daniel into favor and tender love with the prince of the eunuchs. So Ashpenaz in verse 3 there. Let me see here. Go to Proverbs with me right quick.
I was reading the rest of 10.
Oh, Proverbs 16:7. That's why I made a little note there. After I read that verse there, it says, "Now God had brought Daniel into favor and tender love with the prince of the eunuchs." What does Proverbs 16:7 say? It says, "When a man's ways please the Lord, he maketh even his enemies to be at peace with him." Isn't that wonderful? Proverbs 16:7. When a man's ways please the Lord. What did Daniel do? In 9 and 8, in 9, we see that he had brought Daniel into the favor and tender love and care. Why would this man, why would Ashpenaz, the head, the leader of the eunuchs, find favor with Daniel, this young man that's been brought over from Jerusalem, Israel? He is now one of their actual prisoners, exiles that they brought over. Why would he have favor except by the hand of God?
Mm-hmm.
God's hand was already on Daniel and his 3 friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So when he makes this request, he goes, "Yeah, I'll give you 10 days. Well, now, you have to understand, this man has direct orders from Nebuchadnezzar to feed these people right away, to start feeding them his meats, his foods, his rations, and his strong drink. And he goes, "You know what? We're way over here, and I'm the ruler of this little area here. So, yeah, well, that's the hand of God working already."
Right.
Okay.
I was thinking something like that too, because he should have just said, "To heck with it. No,
Yeah.
not going to do it."
No, we're going to, this is my orders.
And then
Yeah.
they probably would have said, Daniel was, "Oh, we ain't need nothing then." You know?
Well, I think we read that last week over in Philippians or Philemon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 2:13. He's brought this about to will and to do his good will. He always has a plan for life.
Yeah.
10 says, "And the prince of the eunuchs said unto Daniel, I fear my lord the king." The chief here eunuch said, "I fear the Lord my king, who has appointed your meat and your drink. For why should he see your faces worse liken the children which are of your sort? Then shall ye make me endanger my head to the king." So, in other words, he's kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. He likes Daniel. He's taken a liking to this young man. Daniel's not giving him any problems, and he just walks up to him this day and he says, "Pardon me there, Mr. Ashpenaz, I have a request." Yes, what is it? First of all, he didn't even have to hear his request. But here's the thing. The hand of God Almighty has already worked in Nebuchadnezzar, his servant,
Yeah.
to tell all of his subordinates, "Be nice to these people. I'm gonna kill them with kindness," quote unquote. He don't want to kill them. He wants to
Draw them in.
He wants to draw them in. So they have a little bit of leeway, and so he goes, "You know what? My ultimate order is to be nice to you. You're my prisoner here, quote unquote. But we won't call them prisoners.
Yeah.
We've taken over your country. We've taken your capital. We've brought you out over to our land for you to serve us. So we're just going to be really, really nice to you." So that's who he's. That's 6 1 half a dozen the other.
Right.
But also Ashpenaz goes, "If I don't do what Nebuchadnezzar says, he could just kill me. He could just."
Right.
I won't say what he could actually say there, but being a eunuch, that
Okay.
Anyway, so you made comment about your 10. You had.
Yeah, I know you read 10, but you responded, "I am afraid of my lord the king, who has ordered that you eat the food and wine. If you become pale and thin compared to the other youths your age, I am afraid the king will have me beheaded."
Mm-hmm. Right. Isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
Look what he does though.
Yeah.
This is the hand of God working. 11:12 says, "Then said Daniel to Melzar," the steward there, his steward, "whom the prince of the eunuchs had set over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah." See, it says it again. This is the second time. It's going to mention it again the third time in one chapter. So the Lord is wanting us to remember their actual Okay.
But I call them his friends.
Yeah.
Because I can't pronounce the name.
Hananiah,
Hananiah,
and Mishael,
Mishael, and
Azariah.
Azariah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Go ahead.
12 says, prove thy servants, I beseech thee, 10 days, so there's a little 10-day test going here, and let them give us pulse, or yours may say the vegetation or grain.
And it says, diet of vegetables and water.
Okay, vegetables, water, grain, out of the good grain, the good nutritious stuff that we're used to eating over here in the land of Israel, to eat, and water to drink. So, in other words, no strong drink and no strong meat. And now we're not talking about a good old Black Angus burger here. We're talking about meats, whatever they have there in the land that they cut up. It could be cow, it could be sheep, it could be whatever else, but some sort of meat that the Babylonians think in their mind, because we eat this. And I'm thinking it may be something way off, but it's some sort of meat, protein from something, from an animal.
Mhm.
That's why they think in their minds, this is why we're so smart here. This is why we've been able to take over the world. So it might not be a good old southern fried steak or barbecued chicken wing. It could be something different. And Daniel's like, I'll tell you what. Let's do this little test. Well, first of all, notice what the Babylonians think. They think, in 10 days, you're going to get really weak, and you're going to be kind of blah, and you're not going to have much strength, and your countenance is going to fall, and you're just going to be like on baby poor rations here. Why am I going to put myself in that position? And Daniel said, well, I'll tell you what, just give us 10 days to test it out. That's fair, isn't it? Okay, let's do it. So this is what happened. Of course, the warlords worked all this out too.
Sure did.
Then, 13 says, then let our countenances be looked upon before thee, and countenance of the children that eat of the portions of the king's meat, and as thou seest, deal with thy servants. Well, now wait a minute, Bill. In that verse there, can we take out of the fact that there might have been some of the exiles that went along with their orders?
Oh, sure.
Just sit down and eat what the king has for you. You're going to start learning Chaldean. You're going to start. Yeah. So.
Yeah, these are probably the only four that defied him. Defied that request, because of their belief.
They stood. They made a stand. They purposed in their heart, folks. That's what I want to bring out in chapter 1. Daniel and these friends here purposed in their hearts. I am a child of God. Look, they remembered or could relate to Psalm 77. Whoa, look where we are now. We're pulled out of our land. Where's our God? We're now supposed to worship. I've been called Belteshazzar. I'm now supposed to worship Baal. I'm a worshiper of Baal now. Where's my God? No.
Yeah.
Then they stopped and went, wait a minute. Our God's still on the throne. Our God's still marvelous. Our God, we're going to do what He says do. And boy, are they going to be put to test here in a little bit.
But the thing is, when you're talking about that, when Daniel says, well, just give us vegetables and water, and then let's say the chief of staff of that guy, he says, well, no, and then Daniel says, we just ain't going to eat at all. What are you going to do,
Well, they had to eat something.
Yeah, but I think that could have been a starving, or what they call a starvation strike, to get what they wanted. But the last thing that this guy wants is for them to come out and get real weak.
Or to be killed.
Right.
Because they have charge.
Yeah.
And put there again, let's go back to this time. The king.
Of course, the king hasn't seen these guys yet because they're still in training.
Yeah, he says, give them 3 years before you bring them to me. But their job is on the line too.
Right.
He has given them a certain amount of time to take the choicest of this land that I've just invaded. My army has pulled out the cream of the crop. Now then, we're going to make them the cream of our crop. Go. So they're on this timeline too. You're talking about a strict military situation here. We're talking about the rule of the world here. Okay. Remember in 14, did we read 14? It says, so he consented to them. God has provided this also now. Okay? And Matthew 6:24, it says, you can't serve God and man or mammon. You're going to love one and you hate the other. Well, notice that these four here have chosen to serve God. That just makes me wonder in 13 there. And the countenance, so compare us. He could also be comparing them to any other lands that they may have taken to, and they didn't stand up for their God. They didn't stand up for whoever they would have been worshiping. nor I don't think any of the other children of Israel were doing this either. I think it's these four.
It just these.
We'll see, yeah. So, where are you today? Are you one of the minority that stands up for God, or are you one of the world that James 4:4 says, oh, I'm just a buddy of the world, everything's okay. Love, love, love. 15 says, and at the end of the 10 days, their countenances appeared fairer and fatter in flesh than all the children which did eat the portion of the king's meat. Well, well. So they've gone 10 days not defying. Now, do you think the miracle was in the food bill, or do you think the miracle and the blessing was them doing what God had told them to do?
I think it was what God told them to do.
Absolutely. And then he blessed what they partook of.
Right.
Yep, sure enough.
The food didn't hurt.
The food was good for them. What
Right.
they ate and drank. Now,
They were, my book says, better nourishment.
better nourishment. They had better nourishment. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure enough. That's what it boils down to.
Mhm.
And folks, if you want to really delve into the Levitical law, the Mosaic law, that's what God was bringing about for his children, for the children of Israel, for the Israelites. He had set them up with a certain diet of do eat this, don't eat that. He wanted them to have the best nutrition. How many times, and I talked to a man at the health food store the other day, how many times in the Word of God do you see the word almonds, leeks, garlic, onions, all these fresh vegetables out? Going through the desert for 40 years, the wilderness for 40 years, what did they eat? They didn't go down to Chick-fil-A every evening and eat, or McDonald's and have a
Big Mac.
whatever, yeah. They ate
What God provided.
what God provided, and then also in the New Testament you see fish eaten a lot, certain kind of fish
Oh
eaten
yeah.
a lot.
Oh yeah.
Now then, read 16 and 17.
16 and 17. So after that, the attendant fed them only vegetables instead of the food and wine provided for the others. God gave these 4 young men an unusual aptitude for understanding every aspect of literature and wisdom, and God gave Daniel the special ability to interpret the meanings of visions and dreams.
So how about that? Now I want you to notice something here. In 16, something was taken away first. Thus, Melzar took away the portion of their meats and of the wine that they should drink, and gave them what? So something was taken away first, and then what happened in 17? God gave. Folks, physical, spiritual. What has to be taken away from a person before they can stand justified before God? Our sins. What we have done in the past, what is in our bodies and our minds and our spirits and our thoughts and our makeup and our souls right now, that has to be taken away. And then what does God do? Gave them.
Yeah,
What did he give them?
it says it. to
Eternal
me,
life.
Yeah, it rewarded them for believing and staying in the faith of God.
Took
That was
away
their
the portion,
reward.
take the world away,
Mhm.
God comes in.
Amen.
See there? Take the portion of their meat. In other words, if you want to look at it, which I think these verses 15, 16, 17 already says, hey, they walk into their quarters. Oh, I won't call it a banquet room. They weren't that high on the list yet. These 4 are fixing to be booted up to the top of the class
Amen.
and put into the royal staff. But at this moment, they're taken into their quarters, and this is already laid out. And they see the platters out there, they see the tables out there, here's your chair and stuff like that. And so Daniel's like, let's do this little test. And so after this 10 days, so all that stuff's taken away from them, what's put on their table? What they've requested.
Right.
Take away, something's got to be taken away, then God adds. See, that's if you read 16, 17, very clearly there.
Yep.
So now then they're given an all wisdom. So that also lets us know too that as for these 4 children, God gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom, and Daniel had the understanding in all visions and dreams. So it wasn't what they were eating that gave them wisdom and power, like
No.
these people were thinking. God gave it to them. Okay. Now then, you have to understand that the Babylonians are serving the leader of all the cults, which is Satan himself, from Shinar, from Babylon, the Babylonian Empire, all that refuses God. This is how they get their wisdom.
Ah.
Now at the end of the days that the king had said he should bring them in. So 3 years have passed now. So these young men are about 20 now. Now at the end of the days to bring them in, the prince of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar. So let's see how you've gone on here. And the king communed with them, and among them all was found none like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Therefore stood they before the king. In other words, he went, those four right there, boop, bring them out, them are special. Well, gee, who really had them planned out already? God Almighty. And in all matters of wisdom and understanding that the king inquired of them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers that were in all his realm. Wow. Well, gee, what does James 1:5 tell me today? Bill, class, if I lack wisdom, I can ask of God, and he gives it to me liberally. And upbraideth not, he won't hold back. What I want to understand out of his word, he will allow me to understand out of his word. That's what he said. This just happened in Daniel's day, that they were 10 times. So there was a little bit of a test going on here, not only of the young men that were there, but also his staff too. He was going, how have you been working for me the last 36 months? What's been going on here? So you reckon that old Ashpenaz, he might have given Ashpenaz a thumbs up, and Melzar and stuff like that? I don't know what you've been doing with these four here, but doggone, these smart. Come, bring them to me. I don't know. Well, let's see. He was probably pleased with them.
Apparently.
And Daniel, 21 said, and Daniel continued even unto the first year of King Cyrus. Now that's put in there for a timeline for us. It doesn't go with that. It just lets us know that Daniel is going to be here for the full 70 years of the Babylonian exile. That's what that verse right there lets us know.
So the kings that he was under were all Babylon kings. No, okay.
No, but all the Babylonians that we're going to read about in Daniel, the next one's going to be 3 and 4, and then when we get to 5, there's going to be this old boy's probably grandson. His name is Belshazzar, the one that reads the writing on the wall. But if you'll notice there, it says the King Cyrus. Who was Cyrus? Cyrus is the one that came in from the Medes and the Persians and took over the Babylonian Empire. So Daniel was led up to that one.
So that's kept him on.
Yep.
We're going to keep this guy on.
Yep, sure enough. Well, first of all, he's going to be promoted. He keeps being promoted,
All the way
just like Joseph was back on way over years earlier before this. When you do what the Lord does, what the Lord says, it says He makes even your enemies. So year after year, this guy's going, well, he's not even really Babylonian, but he knows our ways. He speaks our language. He dresses like us. He even looks like one of us. But wait a minute, inside, he's still Daniel. He's the man of God. God is his judge. In other words, that's what Daniel means. So he didn't fall down and worship Baal. He continued to worship God Almighty. It's a fascinating opening there to
Yeah,
to
it
Daniel.
really is. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff going on that we're not aware of.
I like that. In yours, did it say in all wisdom and balanced judgment? In
Wait.
20 there?
My 20 says, whenever the king consulted them in any matter requiring wisdom and balanced judgment,
Balanced judgment, yeah. So in common
he found
sense.
them 10 times more capable.
This dude is he's just wise, he's smart, he's good, he's everything else. So yeah, that's fascinating how
So
the
he
Lord
became
does that.
the king's favor.
Alrighty.
Because I'll tell you what, I was listening and reading those chapters last night in my Bible, and they were just flying by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Word of God is it's alive.
This is an exciting book.
Mhm.
Exciting book.
Sure enough, already. So we might just continue that. Let me see if it. Oh my goodness! Looky there, Daniel.
Daniel.
Okay. Oh, we'll do Daniel 2.
Pick a chapter.
Yeah.
Pick a chapter.
Let's do 2.
Okay.
Yeah. There you have it, folks. I guess we have a new study for the next few weeks. It'll be Daniel.
I really think we should stay in Daniel because I think it's going to be. I mean,
Oh my goodness! Looky there,
it's stopped at Daniel.
Daniel again.
I'll be danged.
So that'll be Daniel 3.
Yeah. You gonna do 4? There's only 12.
Oh, no, I'm not kidding. It landed on Daniel. I'm not kidding you, folks.
You know, we're still recording, you know.
Yeah, I see it.
Daniel.
Yeah.
There you go. We'll stop right there.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Well, that's Daniel, Daniel 1. That's the introduction. It's going to get rather interesting here pretty soon. Well, it always is.
It's always interesting when Sam's teaching it.
Yeah. Well, I try to make it exciting and captivating and
Yeah, I know, Sam. I
I
know.
like to keep.
Don't fall asleep on us.
I figured you'd say, "Wake up, Joe." Anyway.
I know what you mean, but I mean, you. The thing I like about your studies is your passion. You're very passionate about it, and you make it interesting.
It's Word of God.
You also do things like, well, let's find out.
Well, let's find out. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh! Dot
Yeah.
dot dot. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and I'm blessed to be in your class.
Well, thank you very much. Alrighty, folks. Well, we'll see you next week, Lord willing. That'll be the 12th. Gosh, it was flying by. Fixing to be the fall of the year.
Yeah,
I'm ready.
yeah,
Let's say autumn.
yeah.
Oh, I don't like to mention the fall of the year too much right now in these days that we're going through. So keep praying, folks. Keep praying out there. God,
Yeah.
God is still on the throne. This is what
He
we're going
is.
to learn in Daniel.
Yep.
So, alrighty. Thank you all very much, and we will see you next time. Praise the name of the Lord.